24th regular meeting will now come to order. Roll call.
Mr. Allen.
Present.
Mrs. Calhoun.
Here.
Ms. Dobler.
Here.
Mrs. Edwards.
Here.
Mrs. Grant.
Here.
Mr. Kinley.
Here.
Mrs. Petrosky.
Here.
Mrs. Stemler.
Here.
Mrs. Thomas.
Here.
All 9 members present.
Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me.
Next on the agenda, we have the minutes for March 13th, 2023, and March 27th, 2023, both of them regular meetings. May I have a motion for A and B?
I'll motion.
Someone second? Okay. Any questions? Hearing no questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor, like sign. Motion carries. Next will be approvals for the treasurer's report. We have a March 2023 treasurer's report. We have a March 2023 investment report. We have March 2023 board summary report. And we have a March 2023 student activities report. May I have a motion for A through D?
Motion.
Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor, like sign. Motion carries. Approval of the bills. The bills are $4,473,222.95. May I have a motion?
A motion.
I'll second.
Anything that you would like to address, Mr. Enders, on this?
Yeah, bills are about $1 million higher than normal. Couple of things to point out. We had the demo for the Johnson House. That bill came in. That's in this listing of bills, $31,497. Sugar Valley April's tuition bill is in here. That's just shy of $115,000 that's for 1 month, the month of April. We had our bond interest payments in March, as I told you at the last meeting. That was $150,750.20. And then the big one was our Peaser's quarterly payment was in here. That was just shy of $1.7 million for the quarter. So that's the Peaser's payment's what brought it out of the ordinary. That's all I have to say.
Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 None in favor, like sign. Motion carries. Communications, Dr. Ulmer.
Nothing under communications for this evening, other than I do want to make sure I point out to the board, there is a lot coming out of Harrisburg as we go through budget negotiations. A lot of bills that nothing has actually been passed, but as always, something might end up getting added to the school code bill at the last minute. So if there's anything on that list, and we get every day from PSBA that you see that's concerning, tell them now before somebody decides to add it to the school code bill at the last minute and you don't get a chance to say it's a bad idea.
President's report, we had an executive session was held on Monday, April 10th for the purpose of teacher negotiations, and an executive session was held before the meeting at 5:45 for the purpose of legal personnel and safety. IU report, anything for us, Jesse?
I yield my time.
And student rep's not here. Dr. Ulmer.
At your seat is a handout from Mr. Enders, and I'm gonna let him explain. Actually, two handouts, sorry.
So you got the typical budget presentation. Dr. Ulmer and I discussed the process of this. We are going to be giving this presentation at the next board meeting. Also in there was the revenue outlook for where we are right now in the budget. Like I said, I plan on giving the full budget update at the May 8th meeting.
Anything else? Any questions for Mr. Enders? Again, typical of what you would see around this time of the year, but you have it now to review prior to the next meeting for further conversation.
If you do have any questions, feel free to email me between now and May 8th. I know one person's already reached out to me, so.
Okay, then, second thing on my presentation for this evening is I wanted to give you, we've had a lot of conversation leading up to tonight's vote, and I wanted to give you a sense of my perspective and where I am in this conversation. First of all, one of the things that the administrative team and I believe the board and staff know about me is one of my goals is always to make things as efficient as possible. And the graphic that I like to use when I have this conversation is the one that's on the screen in front of you. Making sure that when we are putting something in place and making a change, that our arrows are all going in the right direction towards a goal. So I'm going to talk a lot of, in this presentation about our goals. I gave them to you, and I'm going to attach this, but I took the graphic of our district goals and I gave that to you first, but then as I go through this conversation, I start with the goals. So one of our goals is increased student achievement. And as I look at that goal and what all three scenarios give you in that realm, and I'll admit up front, there's probably a lot more bullets I could have put on all of these slides. I tried to keep it condensed to some of the major things. So all three scenarios balance class sizes across the district, and I believe that will have an impact on student achievement. B and C do require more itinerant staff travel, which will does decrease their ability to service. And we've had that conversation. When staff are traveling from building to building, it takes time away from their working with kids. Scenario A allows the grade levels to work together in the same building, but I've heard the arguments, they could still work together virtually in other buildings. Option C does disrupt less students across the district, which I've heard could have an impact on student achievement. Our second goal across the district is a unified K-12 culture, and you can see all three scenarios there, what that would look like in 1 building, 2 buildings, 3 buildings across the system. But you see I have on the screen, option C does disrupt less students, which will have an impact on the community. Being disrupted is what I'm saying there. Third goal the district has is enhance opportunities for students. All three scenarios in my mind allow the district to save some money and enhance the opportunities and programs we're giving to students. A does allow for a greater efficiency of human and curricular resources, but you do have a savings no matter which scenario you choose this evening. I then walk through we've had a lot of conversations about school buildings, instruction, staff in terms of teachers, staff in terms of support staff, but I took a step back for all of you because we haven't really talked about operations of the district, and I wanted to make sure that was part of this conversation. There really is not too much of an impact on something like the budget office or the business office or how we create our budget, other than if there is a large change, you might not have a budget here to operate in one building. There really is not an impact on child accounting, enrollment, PIMS, submissions, other than there may be some paperwork if you're operating one less building. You do have the option in Plan A or Plan B to create efficiencies in the delivery of title services, but that really does not affect too much your federal programs other than the paperwork behind what we're doing in federal programs. In food service, we really haven't spent a lot of time talking about food service. There really is only an efficiency in food service in scenario A, but other than that, you're still operating food service the way you normally do. Human resources really isn't going to change in how you're onboarding, training, orienting staff unless you have less staff, which does have the most impact in scenario A, but you would have less staff in all three scenarios that we're looking at. Maintenance and custodial, again, you're gonna have all three buildings. There may be a slight reduction in the work of that in scenario A. We've talked about safety and security, not too much in public, but you would have efficiencies in all three scenarios, but a larger efficiency in scenario A. Technology would still serve all buildings. We've talked about transportation. One of the things that I wanted you to see is a comparison of each of the scenarios one at a time. We've had all these conversations. You do have some more efficiencies in scenario A. You have an alignment of grade levels in a building. It is disruptive to families, and we've heard from those families. You know, you've heard it here. I've heard it from parents on the phone. Well, I could have a kid in 3 or 4 different buildings if this is what's chosen for the district. You address some of your unused space, which I've heard. You minimize future repairs, but you end the community schools model and you create savings. I do want the community to know that the board has heard from me. One of the things, and you'll see this again in scenario B, so I'll say both at the same time. A change like this is going to impact practices. And so one of the things that I've heard from parents is, well, I want to make sure that my kid always gets to do X, or my kid always gets to do Y. And if you make a decision to choose some of these scenarios, you do that. I need to make sure you do that knowing that it might disrupt the standard practice that you're used to seeing in a school building because it's something that building does or that community wants. So you need to make sure you understand that in both scenario A and B. B does create classroom efficiency, is still disruptive to families and communities. It does allow the youngest students to be in the smallest schools and create savings, as do all the others. Scenario C creates classroom efficiency. It is disruptive to some families, not a whole grade level. It does create savings. I do need the community to hear, the board has been presented with guidelines for how kids would be moved in this scenario that I need to make sure everybody understands. There will be guidelines. It won't be, I'm not going to sit behind the curtain and randomly pick names out of a hat. There's guidelines already written that this scenario is chosen. This is how we'll go about selecting which students and which families get shifted. Ultimately, it comes down to, and one of the questions I was asked is, why am I choosing tonight to have this conversation? It is the job of the superintendent to make a recommendation. Listen to all the conversations. It's the superintendent should be able to develop and implement operational plans and processes to accomplish goals using practical applications. And one of the things that I've shared with the board is, I'm a planner. I have things drafted for how would I carry out each one of these scenarios. It's not going to be started tomorrow. They understand what it's going to look like if they choose A, B, or C, and where the district goes from here on paper. They have maps. They have guidelines. It's all been drafted. So when you think about that, work is done so that we can move on and be ready for the next school year. At the end, I will say to you, and I purposely put this as my preference because I want you to hear clearly, I know that there are shortcomings in each one of these plans. Nothing is magical. When the board makes a decision, somebody's going to say, well, I wish we would have done this way. there may be some shifting that has to occur. Nothing is going to be perfect in 100% of the staff, student, family, or community's mind. And you heard me say in February, I will do the best that I can to make sure whatever happens is pulled off and pulled off well. I've given you my preferences in order, but I will tell you, I think I said to at least one or two board members, I could just say, you know what? This one's, one of these is the easiest for me to pull off. So I could recommend that one and say, you know what, it's a whole lot less work for me and all the staff if we pick this option. But you know me well enough to know that's not what I'm going to do. I am also not going to leave tonight upset if what I say is my preference isn't what's chosen, because I know that no matter what is chosen, we'll make it work. So I've given you that, I would say, based on my look at our goals and what I think we can accomplish, scenario A is my first preference, scenario C is my second preference, B is my third preference, and I really hope you don't do nothing, because I think we have the ability to make change in the district. But you needed to see my recommendation before you vote.
Thank you.
Questions? You're welcome. That's my report.
Okay, next we move on to courtesy of the floor. This courtesy of the floor will be for comments on the agenda, on the voting agenda. State your name, address, and agenda item you would like to address, and you will have 3 minutes. First one on the list is B.D. Hall.
Edie Hall, Hensler Road, Mifflin Township. The school board of the 1960s voted on building this Salisbury Elementary School for our community. It's been an asset for our area. The population is still here. The remodel to enlarge the gym and the cafeteria combination back then, those on the board didn't have plans in the future to eliminate this school. The focus was for the future. 2 times in 6 years, this uproar of closing our school has been a waste of time. You've heard the public's comments. We want our school to continue in the future. The school board of the 1960s got it right when they had a vision, voted on this school for a future of generations of children to be educated in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Pryor.
Bob Pryor, Mifflin Township. I'd like to thank Dr. Homer for your perspectives. I personally think scenario A would be the best one, because that will permit our district to go down the road in a good manner. We have to work efficiently in this district, because the older people in the district who own land just cannot afford the taxes to go up anymore. I'd like to know how many of these scenarios were put together from the feasibility study that we paid $41,000 for. Is that correct, Madam President?
I believe so.
How many of these scenarios were developed from that feasibility study?
The last feasibility study we had was not asked to put together scenarios. They did put some scenarios together because board asked questions, but it wasn't part of the feasibility study.
So you basically are ignoring the feasibility study.
Not necessarily.
That's not the impression I get. But anyway, hopefully you'll vote in favor of scenario A. But if you don't, I'll have some other comments to say later. And also, when the lady mentioned the 1960s when that school was built, How many were born after 1960 in this room? Things changed. Things were different back then. There were 400 and some kids, I believe, in Salladisburg back in the 60s, right after they built the school. Certainly not now, 170, 171, I forget exactly what it is. Times change. And I don't recall in any history books that when they closed the one-room schools, there was such a fiasco, as some people call this. They wanted a bigger school back then because the country was growing. We're not growing anymore. We lost over 10,000 people from Lycoming County in the last couple of years. I mean, come on. You're not going to get kids to come back to the school if we're the highest paid and the highest taxed in the county, right along with South Williamsport, by the way. So, common sense. Wake up. Thank you.
Thank you. Alicia Bilby.
Alicia Bilby, Pye Township. My daughter, who went to Salladisburg, is now in high school, and I had to fight school closure through her tenure at Salladisburg. My son is currently in 5th grade at Salladisburg, so a school closure would not affect him. But Salladisburg Elementary is too important to not stand up for, even though it does not affect my household. I've been on the PTO board for years. You could not imagine a more perfect school where all of the students, teachers, and staff know each other and all support each other. I would caution you when looking at closing schools for cost-saving measures that in most communities where it has happened, it does not have the desired effect. Parents enroll their children in cyber and charter schools, which costs the school district money. The communities where a school has closed see less people moving into that area. It can also lead to reduced housing values, which translates to less taxes for you. Communities without local schools are considered less desirable places to live. The cost of school closures is always higher than what is planned on. This isn't even getting into the physical and mental development you could be impacting of our young children in their formative years. Do not take away one of the reasons people move to our school district, our elementary schools. We have a great school district. We excel in academics and athletics against schools much larger than ours. Do not attempt to fix something that isn't broken. We have teachers and school environments that our children are lucky to have and thrive in. Choose the option with the least impact to our children. The greatest good for the greatest number is option C. Thank you.
Thank you. Ray Bearley.
Ray Beerley, Pyatt Township. In the presentation from the superintendent, there's mention of that each of the options balances class size, but it doesn't say how or to what number each option provides. Do we have that available? What the average class size is, K through 5, in each scenario? Not the average overall. What's the average class size, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th in option A? What's the average class size in option B? What's the average class size in option C?
We have had that, but we don't have it at our fingertips at this point. And they're also different by grade level.
But did the board members have all those numbers available for them this evening to look at as they make their final decision? Because it's one thing to say that we balance class size, but I would surmise that option A balances class size at a higher number than option C balances class size. If you have the students dispersed within 2 buildings versus an option where they're in 3 buildings, it's hard to imagine that the class sizes are equivalent.
I do know the range stays within the guidelines that we have.
But that doesn't answer the question, and I asked this question before, and the answer that I got really wasn't the answer I was looking for, so I'm asking it again, because I think that's very critical. If option A has a class size range from 23 to 27, and option C has a class size range from 18 to 22, that's a significant difference and a very important factor to consider when you vote. And to not have those numbers available now for all of us to see, to me, is a great disservice to the board and to the community, as this very, very critical decision is being made. The actual comment that I want to make is, I appreciate, the superintendent, I'm not sure, I find it entirely appropriate that he actually says what his choices are. I thought everything up through that was excellent. It kind of puts board members in a spot that might have different thoughts. But option A closes a school, and I wonder why you think that's a good thing. We won't need to hear that tonight. Option to me, obviously, is my choice because it is least disruptive to students. We talk about building efficiency, we talk about system efficiency. That's primarily efficiency affecting the adults, who should be quite efficient anyways. And I know it for a fact that our teachers and our staff are quite efficient anyways. So the big difference between A and C is it's least disruptive to the kids. And that's the deciding factor. They've been very disrupted the past several years, and this would give them a few years of stability. If 5, 8, 10 years down the road you decide it's imperative you close a school, you still have that option. But you don't have to do it now. It's not necessary now, and it's not a good idea now. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd love to see those class size numbers. Can't believe they don't have those.
Lily?
Dr. Lily Langlois, Cummings Township. You guys are all know what I'm going to say. You've heard it before. You're probably sick of it. Me as well. I just have a question for Dr. Ulmer. First of all, I appreciate your perspective, the summary, because you have a unique perspective that the constituents don't have. What do you mean when A equals ends community school model? What do you mean by those words?
That exactly what, I'm making sure I'm on. That means I'm telling the board exactly what they've been hearing, is if that is the option that's chosen, they need to understand that the community schools that we're talking about would not exist. So if you choose option A, that means your children potentially aren't going to the school that's closest to where they live.
Okay. Okay. You also talked about K through 5 unity, and I think when you chop K through 5 up into 2 different buildings and you have that disruption, that to me lacks unity. Because what we have right now, and Ava's parents should be here as well, same thing with JSE, same thing with Salisbury, we're all in the same boat. You take that K through 5 system and you split it up between different buildings. These kids have already been through a pandemic. You're gonna lose learning every step of the way. And this is not just like, oh, 2023, the board voted to close this school. This disruption happens every year. Every time under scenario B, they go from grade 2 to grade 3, right? You've done the math? Okay. So somebody mentioned the feasibility study. That was done pre-pandemic. A lot of those numbers there financially are, you can pretty much throw them out the window. Any costs that need to be developed, if you ever need to create a building, annex a building, whatever that might be. Just remember, Nipponos, they estimated $7.5 million. It ended up being $15 million. So that's almost double. So whatever you do, you hope you don't have to do, say, no backsies. Because it's essentially permanent, financially speaking. So 170, 180 students of our students, we just talked about how many students we've lost. Well, they're in charter schools. So you disrupt this community again, that's what's gonna happen. It's just an unending cycle, and you have to anticipate that in the future. I don't know why we always go back to the hatchet. It's been 20 years. We've been talking about closing this building for 20 years. I still stand behind Dr. Ulmer's words. Whatever decision is done, let that be. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin, Law?
Hi, Justin Moore, Anthony Township. So I could stand here and ask you to go status quo. That would be great for my family and my kids. but I wouldn't put anybody in that position. It's been a good many years that we've stood here and advocated for kids and people advocating for, careful resources, use of the tax dollars. It's a shame the community is so divided. There's people here that on a different night I have a lot in common with that I can talk to, and when this issue comes up, it's just a really shame that our community can't come together and move on. And maybe tonight provides that opportunity, because if I go back to July, I think the conversation started where people wanted to see a tax savings. The discussion went further, and people at JSE wanted more equity, and they wanted more balance in class sizes. And of course, you have people that love their community schools, which is a good thing for you. And you have options that meet all of those things. You have option C that provides a savings, it keeps the school open, and it does balance out your class size. It is the only option that meets part of what everybody wants. It's said many times that option A, when you move kids together, you get a better outcome. I haven't seen research that supports that. On a Superintendent Association website, it actually points out that research is greatly wanting, and it's not there. Have you ever seen a school district reconfigure to put kids in one place solely for an educational outcome? I haven't. It always starts with money. It's not a benefit to students. In fact, there's many drawbacks. Kids benefit from being in their community. They benefit from going to school with their siblings. They benefit from year after year having relationships with the same group of kids and not having to start over. Those things are valuable. It doesn't show up on your budget, but it's valuable to kids. Itinerants lose some class time when they travel. Do you realize that students lose twice that amount of time because they have to make that trip twice? That's twice the amount of time they lose with their family in the morning or the evening or to do homework. Your reading specialist pointed out that option A also removes reading specialists from being in the building with 4th and 5th graders, and even though they don't service those kids directly, it's the only professional in the building that knows all of those kids and is a resource to your 4th and 5th grade teachers. So I don't advocate for the best option for my family, which would be status quo. I advocate for the best option for the district, which is option C. And I really do wish this community could come together because we got a lot of good things going on, and this is just a constant detraction for our district. Just this week, more school choice was approved throughout the country. When that wave comes, you will be best positioned as a board and as taxpayers, seniors alike, if we maintain our schools, because we are more competitive and we offer a better option for parents with our schools open. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
Good evening, Matt Crawl, Anthony Township. I still have not, I've asked a couple times, but what is the exact timeline for this to occur? When are you looking to complete this on the vote? Are we next year? Like, we're doing the vote tonight, but when's this all gonna take place?
It should be for the fall.
For the fall, okay. I have 20 years of teaching experience. I've taught in charter schools, public schools, and currently where I'm at. Bigger, I can tell you right now, I taught in a charter school with 16 kids. One of the best teaching experiences I ever had. I also went to a public school with 14 kids. One of the best teaching experiences I ever had. I love my job where I'm at, but sometimes bigger is not better. Scheduling becomes an issue when you are bigger, when you go to these bigger schools. It was said services will be better located within that school. They may be located within that school, and they may all be there, but still services are disrupted constantly, because when you bring that number of students together with a scheduling conflict, with that number of teachers, it's hard to iron out schedules. Caseloads are harder to handle. Still the same number of teachers, still the same number of kids, but they're lumped into one area. Taxes are and will continue to go up, unfortunately. Things are changing in our world. Costs are going up. Unfortunately, they are and will continue to go up. That's something that we need to change within Harrisburg. We do need to unite as a community. We do need to unite and fight these things in Harrisburg. We need to fight the things of charter school costs, taxation system, and not worry about closing a school. We should be united in those things so we don't have to have this discussion over and over again. Closing a school, ending a community school, ending a community atmosphere. Ending a community atmosphere is worrisome. School choice is coming. It's coming down the road. It's already here. It's charter school. It's private schools. But more is coming with public school choice. We fall into line and make this big building. We are now like every school in Lycoming County. We are the same. We have nothing different about us. Our recruitment and retention goes down due to those things. We have fallen into line. Again, falling into line does not make us better. It actually makes us worse. We don't stand out. Efficiency, though, was stated about efficiency. Efficiency comes down to administration creating better organized plans that suit those options. In my opinion, option C doesn't disrupt students. It doesn't end the community school atmosphere. Option C keeps us together, more aligned as a community, and allows for other things to take place within buildings that when you go to a bigger building is harder to achieve. I implore you to please vote for option C and keep the kids in mind as you vote, not the dollar sign. Thank you for your time, thank you for your consideration, and thank you for all you've done up to this point.
Thank you. That will close courtesy of the floor. Moving on to personnel. In the attachment, you will see the retention of the following winter sports assistant coaches per the attached listing for 23-24 school year. Service agreement with UPMC Sports Medicine for athletic training services. There are two options there giving us the availability to have, to be able to move forward in the future. We only pay them for the time that they are here. It's not a set contract that we're paying this amount of money because it has to do with the time they're here. Letter C, accepting a letter of retirement from Dawn Gardner, who is a paraprofessional with 20 years of service. A letter of resignation from Brent Wheeling, career and technical education teacher at the high school, effective April the 12th. Letter of resignation from Margaret Hensler, and a letter of resignation from Violet Angler, both food service assistant cooks. FMLA for March the 22nd, 2023 through April 13th, 2023, approximately for employee 2022-23-04. Appointment of Jeffrey Ellis and Harmony Sedgwick as game staff for the athletic department for the 22-23 seasons. A letter of resignations for Michael Hobson's custodian at the high school. The non-contractual employee benefits effective the 2023-2024 school year as attached. The only change that is on there is that vision has been added for those employees since 80% of our employees have that already. Acknowledgement that Allison Tripoli has attained a Master's of Education degree. Medical leave without pay for employee for 2022-23-18 for April 21st through July the 14th. This person does not qualify for FMLA. Appointment of Karina Mikesel as a part-time cafeteria worker for food service. Appointment of Caleb Catherine as assistant baseball coach. May I have a motion for A through O?
So moved, Mary.
I heard Mrs. Petrowski and Mrs. Dover.
Questions or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None in favor, like sign. Motion carries.
Sorry, Mary, you're faster than I am. Dr. Elmer, can I just have an update on how things are going in the CTE with Mr. Whelan's departure?
Two things. Last week, and Dr. Seagraves did a lot of legwork, so kudos to her in reaching out to some retirees from other districts. We have one retiree who was a CTE teacher in that field who is coming in this week to help get through the NOCD exams. And in the meantime, we were able to find another person that, as soon as we get all the paperwork, is another retired CTE teacher in that field who hopefully we get all the paperwork completed by the end of this week, since we have someone for this week who is willing to finish out the year in that classroom. So that will be a big, I can't say for sure until we get all the paperwork completed and in hand, but we have, Dr. Seagraves did a lot of work to get out to retirees that we have someone here for NOCDs this week and then potentially someone else who will finish the year. So that classroom is covered.
Thank you.
Moving on to curriculum and instruction. We have a vote on the reconfiguration scenarios. Scenario A is grades K to 3 at Drew Shore Elementary and grades 4 to 5 at Avis. Scenario B, grades K to 2 split at Avis and Saldiesburg Elementaries and grades 3 to 5 at JSE. Scenario C, all elementary buildings remain K to 5. Students are shifted to equalized class sizes and then or remain status quo. May I have a motion?
Motion.
The way the vote will be taken, it will be a roll call vote. People will make their choice, either A, B, C, or status quo. And we'll see what happens at the end of that vote before we move forward. And I will explain what happens at that point. Open for comments or questions.
I have some comments. We would all agree that we have a common goal, and that's to provide the best possible education for all district students using available resources in the most efficient way. It is an undeniable reality that our elementary enrollment has declined. 233 students, or 20% decline in the last decade. Two recent public articles, one by PSBA, noted that this is especially true in rural north central PA, where 38 out of 55 districts have closed elementary schools in the past decade. These 55 districts experienced a decline of 11% over the past decade, outpacing a statewide decline of 8%. So while we are not an outlier in the sense of decreasing enrollment, Jersey Shore's decline has far surpassed other similar schools in our geographical region of the state. As noted by Dr. Ulmer, option A provides greater efficiencies in student accounting paperwork, delivery of federal title services, food service delivery, and maintenance and custodial operations. Also, an ever-increasing concern is safety and security, which will also realize greater efficiencies in emergency response time under option A. Finally, in addition to the reduction in instructional staff, option A is the only one that has the probability of a reduction in non-instructional staff. Some board members have asked, where are we going to get the money from much needed renovation upgrade projects to school district buildings, identified by Dr. Omer and his staff as high priority from the Hunt study. These upgrades are estimated at this point to be over $10 million. As projected by Dr. Omer and his staff previously, option A could result in an immediate potential savings of close to $1 million annually, which could start funding the costs of these needed renovations. Option A has the potential for the greatest cost savings. Dr. Omer's final thoughts in his presentation summarized the positive and negative impacts of all three options. His concluding recommendation is a preference for option A. Many of the same reasons for his preference were also provided by our three elementary principals in a recent document to the board, in which they unanimously expressed their strong support for option A versus B and C. Collectively as a board, should we not rely heavily on the thoughtful analysis and recommendation of our most experienced professional educators to provide direction as to the best educational delivery system to our elementary students? In my 45-plus years as a professional accountant, both as an employee working directly with boards of directors and as serving as a member of local not-for-profit organizations, have I rarely, if ever, seen situations in which decisions were made other than on the reliance of input and recommendations of administrators. I believe it is a big mistake to ignore the recommendations of our educators. Our decision tonight will impact not only our elementary students, but also the other 1,000-plus district students and taxpayers as well, not only in the short term, but also in the long term. After the March 28th board meeting, the Sun-Gazette asked the question in their post-meeting reporting, quote, does the district need 3 elementary schools, or does it need to streamline and consolidate as many other districts in the area are doing as cost-saving measures? The question is, do we have the courage to make a tough decision based on facts rather than on emotions and bias, even though the decision may be unpopular or inconvenient for some?
Any other comments or concerns? Mr. Enders, roll call.
Mr. Allen,
I'm going to go with scenario C.
Mrs. Calhoun,
Scenario C.
Ms. Stoller,
Option C.
Mrs. Edwards,
I'm going to go with A.
Mrs. Grant,
Scenario C.
Mr. Kinley,
Scenario A.
Mrs. Petrosky,
Scenario C.
Mrs. Stemler,
A.
I didn't hear what she said.
A.
Mrs. Thomas,
C. Motion carries for option C. There will be no further votes on this. Moving on to finance, building and grounds, of which there is nothing. Oh, sorry. There are 2 things, because of the vote, there are 2 things that have to be identified. One is that we do an extension of the teacher retirement. You can see this, they can see this on their
I
agenda.
can change it in a minute.
Oh, I'm passing these down, is that what you're saying to me?
Mrs. Thomas, I'd just like to clarify, if you look at how the vote was taken online, it does reference that the motion failed, that all the 9 members were not present, just the way we voted. The minutes will be correct though, but I just wanted to say that publicly, so when people are looking at it online, they understand what's going on.
So it's saying we weren't all present?
The way I had to record the vote,
Okay.
when I saved it, it referenced that none of the board members were present and that the motion failed, but the minutes,
Okay.
the actual minutes will be correct.
Okay, gotcha. All right, addendum 1 is the extension of the teacher retirement notice date for the 2022-23 school year from March the 1st, 2023, moving it to May the 2nd of 2023 at 12 p.m. noon. And this motion does not change the notice for any future years. Let me do these together. And the second option is the operational guidelines for scenario C as Dr. Ulmer has, and they are attached, presented. Being that these are new agenda items, we will open courtesy of the floor if anyone wants to address only these two items. Anyone like to address these two items?
Which two items were they, Madam President?
The two addendums, the extension of the teacher retirement contract, retirement to May the 2nd, and then the guidelines for operations for scenario C.
So you're saying at this courtesy to the floor, I can't make any other comments?
Right, just those two. There'll be comments at the end. You may make comments. You may make comments on our last courtesy of the floor. That'll still be there. But because these weren't here before, you must have the opportunity. Hearing nothing from courtesy of the floor will close. May I have a motion for both addendums?
You have to vote to add them, and then you can vote on them.
Oh, sorry. May I have a vote to add those two addendums? A motion, sorry, to add the two addendums.
Second.
Any questions?
Can we split them?
Can you what?
Can we split them to vote on?
You mean you want a roll
Meaning-
call on one of them? Is that what you're-
Meaning, I may say yes to one and may say no to the other?
So she wants to vote on them separate.
Okay, if she wanted a roll call, I could do it in the same one. That's why I
Got it.
Anyone have a problem splitting them? Okay. All right, we'll take them one at a time. Did we get a second? Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Owen.
Do you have any questions or concerns, any discussion that you want to have at this point? All right, the first addendum was the extension of the teacher retirement notice, moving it to May the 2nd at noon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor, like sign. Motion carries. The second one, addendum, is the operational guidelines for scenario C as presented. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those not in favor, like sign. All right, we're gonna need a roll call.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Calhoun,
No.
Ms. Stover,
Yes.
Mrs. Edwards,
Yes.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Kinley,
No.
Ms. Petrowski,
No.
Mrs. Stemler,
No.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes. Motion
passes
carries.
5-2.
Before you move on, I did make those two addendum items public just now, so they were added to the public agenda as soon as you voted to add them to the agenda, so the public can see them.
Dr. Ulmer, remember to republish the amended agenda within 24 hours.
Building and grounds, there is nothing at this point in time. Moving on to finance items. We have a service and maintenance agreement, an estimate with GG and Fitness Equipment for the fitness and/or physical therapy room at the high school, effective March 2023 through February 28th of 2024. Renewal and purchase of group life insurance, accidental death and disbursement, and long-term disability insurance with C&M Regent Solutions with no change in the rates for July the 1st, 2023 through June the 30th, 2025. Renewal of the employees' dental insurance program with Delta Dental for the period of July 1st, 2023 through June the 30th of 2025. Contract with Susquehanna, the Central Susquehanna Intermediate Unit to provide computer service during the 23-24 fiscal year. And approving a request for a budget transfer of $1,900 from 10-2620-430 to 10-4200-710 for tank removal at the Johnson House. May I have a motion for A through E?
Motion. Second.
Any questions?
I just have a question on the tank. How did we not know there was a tank there?
It was buried underground, not currently connected to the house. It looks like there was a tank in the basement that was used when the house was in operation, when we owned it. And the tank that we discovered was when we were grading the dirt to regrade the property. And we probably wouldn't have found it, but we hit the fill. There were the fill lines were buried, and they ended up getting far enough down that they hit one of those. So thankfully didn't have an issue with structural integrity of the tank, but we did find it and removed it.
And this is money that is in the budget, just transferred to a different position in the budget.
Was it an oil tank?
Oil tank.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns?
Can I ask about the Johnson House now, or should I wait till old business?
No, that's fine.
Okay. So I know it's all graded and everything with some kind of composite. When will we be able to park there?
It can be parked in now.
Oh, really?
What?
So if I park on there, the track read, I'm not gonna get,
It'll be fine.
okay?
They just don't have the line, they just don't have the lines painted yet, so.
We needed it to rain on it a couple times to
Yeah.
settle that clay before we painted the
Yeah,
lines.
because it looks
so the-
like dirt. I mean, I thought if I got in there, I might not get.
The showcase isn't far, they would tell you about it.
Yeah.
No, you're fine.
Okay, but we are gonna paint lines on there?
Oh, tomorrow.
Oh,
Oh, really? Oh, good. Well, we don't have any more home meets anyway.
There's some middle school events coming up.
Yeah.
Just go there and park anyway, Nancy. Claim your spot.
Thanks.
Direct traffic.
Any other comments or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor, like sign. Motion carries. Next is miscellaneous items. Agreement between Dog Sense LLC and Jersey Area School District for the therapy dog. The following policies at first read: 137 home education program, 137.1 extracurricular participation by home education students, 137.2 participation in co-curricular activities and academic courses by home education students, 137.3 participation in career and technical programs by home education students. And I believe basically we have all these things, there's just a little change in some of the language.
We already had most of this in our old policy, but because of a change in the law, we had to have all 4 policies instead of just one.
A contract between Jersey Area School District and UPMCW Wansport DBA UPMC Pediatric Rehabilitation for physical therapy services for the 23-24 school year. Contract between Jersey Area School District and Blast Intermediate Unit for network engineering and a RWAN connectivity backup solution in conjunction with River Valley Internet. Will be effective from July 1st of 23 through July 1st of 28. The EVAC chair quotation for EVAC chair 300H quote to allow a safe controlled descent of an individual from unlimited stories to be paid using contingency funds. To approve a statement of rights and waiver of hearing for student 22-23-08 dated April the 4th, 2023. And a donation of tires for the Jersey Area School District's band equipment trailer by Pine Mountain Auto Repair. May I have a motion for A through G?
Motion.
Second.
Do we have any questions?
Can you remind me, Dr. Ulmer, what the chair's for?
That is, there are two places, the E-wing of the high school on the third floor and the second floor of the middle school, where because there's no outside exit, if we have a student in a wheelchair, which we did encounter earlier this year, that when you pull the fire alarm, the elevator shuts off. So you need to have these evacuation chairs installed for ADA accessibility. Can't believe we got this far in the high school renovation and didn't discover that, but here we are. We're fixing
Omar,
it.
can you explain the internet thing as well?
Yep, so we had, when our internet was, when we had our cyber attack, one of the responses was a backup internet connection, so that in the event that we had to shut our internet service off, we still had a backup. At that time, the IU didn't have a backup service. Our internet's through the IU, so we went to another party, and we have had a backup internet. We had a business internet that wasn't as fast as our normal connection, but the idea was we'd have something to back up and run critical systems. In the meantime, the IU has been working on a backup service to the current service they're providing to us. It doesn't cost us anything differently than what we've been paying for the backup service we have, but we get more megabit something or other that helps us. Tech words. The reason that this is on the agenda, quite honestly, is you typically do not board approve like annual service agreements like that, but because we have to commit to a 5-year contract in order to get that pricing, I put this on the agenda because you're committing to a 5-year agreement so that you can get the price that the IU is willing to give us to buy into that. You have to commit to 5 years to get it because they have some hardware commitments that they have to do. So you'll have a backup internet that's literally a flip over if the original internet doesn't work someday, which has happened multiple times in the last year.
Almost like that's our Generex.
Are you guys happy with this option?
Yes.
Back there?
Yes,
Yes?
yes, this will be much more efficient for the district. Hopefully we never need it, but, if we ever do have to switch over, this will be much more efficient for the district.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Not in favor, like sign. Motion carries. There's nothing listed under old business. Anyone need to bring anything up under old business? Hearing none, we'll move on to the courtesy of the floor. This courtesy of the floor will be for public comment. The non-agenda items, state your name, address, and identify what you would like to address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Bob Pryor, Mifflin Township. I had already concluded why this board majority voted to spend $475,000 on the Saladaysburg roof replacement. I knew how the vote was going to go. I could see it. You never intended to close Saladaysburg, ever. All through this process, this board ignored the majority of property owners who by law have to pay the bills. So we're screwed. We have to do it by law. You presented an online survey that went out to students, parents, and teachers, not to all the taxpayers. I'd be ashamed if I was you. 70+ of those educators don't even live in our district, and they don't pay taxes in our district. Did they have input to this? I didn't. Property owners were cut out of the process. The parents had all the say. And there was only a few of them, really, but they had all the say, right? I'm saying right now, the controlling majority of this board, in my opinion, is corrupt. Okay? You're being controlled by the puppet masters right here. That's why they're up front every
Not
time.
appropriate, Mr.
I'll say
Pryor.
what I
You know-
want.
No, you will not say what you
Well, I
want.
did.
That is
I already
not
said it.
appropriate, Mr.
The
Mr.
fix
Pryor.
is in, right, President Thomas? The fix is in. It always was, and you know it was.
Your opinion,
The
or
puppet
what you are privileged to have.
the puppet masters operated the strings very successfully. Thank you very much. Smile.
Ray, not appropriate.
Alicia Bilby, Pike Township. I just want to say with that they're public meetings. You guys advertise the meetings. Any resident in the district could speak. People who get on the board spend time, money, campaigning. It's a volunteer position, unpaid, multiple meetings a month, sometimes on your committees, multiple times a week. Obviously, you get on because there's an issue you're passionate about. That doesn't mean it's corrupt. It doesn't mean there's an agenda. You are passionate about something. He supports one side, there's another side that's just as passionate. And people get on here maybe with the option of wanting to close schools. Some of you get on here because you want to keep them open. That means that there's an issue that you're passionate about to be in an unpaid position. And thank you for all of your time through this. I appreciate it.
Justin Wall, Anthony Township. Our Representative Wayne Kinley here, Madam President, laid out that he has an accounting background and that.
No, come on, Justin, we're not.
No,
we're
no,
not
I'm
identifying
gonna go down
names.
through the facts that were laid out for the public.
Don't be using names.
Okay.
You're addressing me.
All right, so a board member earlier presented that there would be a $1 million savings if you closed a school. And that board member knows that that's not going to happen immediately, and that's going to happen over a span of time. Board members have presented to the public, as all individuals should have tonight, that you have 6 to 8 closure, or 6 to 8 reductions in option C, just as you did A. And so the difference, when you do the math, is what, 280,000? So a partial tax increase of one time, some of us were willing to throw away a school tonight forever. Because the difference isn't 1 million, the difference was 280,000. That was a bit misleading. Nobody here made a vote because of a survey. In fact, the people who voted to close tonight urge you not even to survey anybody because they weren't informed. And as for a roof, why would you not maintain? If someone is going to vote for a roof, right, they know what they prefer. They're going to maintain a building. Why would we not maintain our assets? And to lead in, to imply that this board is acting on emotions and bias, after our superintendent pointed out that every single person up here is well-informed and has done their homework, was wrong for a board member to say that. This district needs to unite, as Dr. Omer urged us to do, and not divide. For a $280,000 difference, there was no need. There never will be. Enrollment has declined. It's been steady for 5 years, K-5, and it's projected to increase through 2032. Our district is capable of moving on. There is no need for conservative Republicans to say that we need to close our schools for our conservative children, right?
Justin.
That's not needed.
Justin.
Thank you.
Dr. Lily Langlois, Cummings Township. I just want to say amen. Praise the Lord. Thank you. And I want to say, I'm running Region 1. You know where I stand, so come vote for me in May and again in November.
Come on, Lily, you can't do that.
Matt Craw, Anthony Township. I just want to thank everyone for their time and their effort you put into this. I know it's stressful. I've sat through many board meetings in 20 years. I've been through them all. It's very stressful on you. I know what it wears on your family and yourself and your health. So I appreciate the time you've put into these considerations. I appreciate the effort you've put into it. I just urge you to continue to put that effort forward with the plan you have voted for. I urge you to also continue to put the kids first, which I know we've been doing, and I know you have been doing. But just keep that in the forefront of no matter where we're at. I know there's a lot being said about taxpayers and paying taxes, which yes, taxes are going up. But again, I urge everyone to unite and fight what we can fight instead of amongst each other, is to take the argument to Harrisburg with lowering the cost of charter schools, organizing a more equal charter school payout, organizing more for taxation, for fair taxations and rights. So now the money is more evenly distributed. Again, I just want to say thank you for voting for how you felt and voting for even those for or against, but voting for how you felt and voting for on your feelings of where you stand and where you believe is the best route for our district. Please just continue to keep the kids at the forefront, as always, as you are doing, and just keep that in the back of your mind as we move forward. Thank you again, and have a great night.
Ray Beerley, Pyatt Township. I just want to say thank you for the vote this evening. I hope that we can move forward. It was a good, solid majority that speaks to something, and I think we should just, move on, make the best of relationships between all of the people involved. And I just want to say, he's not here today, but my dad would be really happy with the way this vote turned out.
Anyone else? May I have a motion to adjourn? So adjourned.